West Coast.
I support banning plastic bags. There's actually no debate here. It's something we should have done a long time ago, and it's something that I think we can do a lot more than just banning plastic bags. In fact, I think it's good that as a community that we're already talking with our feet, and we're seeing that community members and shoppers are taking bags with them to go into supermarkets, and it's just a cultural shift. That's simply all it is, and that's my point about doing more. I coming off a farm and living in the country, it's quite natural for me to never use a bin liner. It's just not something we've ever really done, because you wash the bin when you empty it and you put the scraps in a scrap bin to take to the chooks and the pigs, and you put the meat separate, so you give that to the dogs. And I would never dream of not doing it that way. It's just how we live our life. We'd also never turn the dishwasher on unless it was full, because we don't waste water. So sort of the concepts that are natural. And I might be getting old, but I can clearly remember grocery shopping and brown paper bags. So there was a time not so long ago that we didn't have plastic bags, and it's actually always no, that's not the right word, astounded me, amazed me, and probably more concerning now that we understand what's actually happened with plastic getting into the environment. But, as I've got older, I've watched things like biscuits getting more and more plastic inserts inside the packets, which once upon a time weren't there. And if a biscuit was broken, it wasn't a big deal. And apples and oranges and mandarins and bananas all having little stickers on them. And, I don't want to increase costs to producers, but I question why that's necessary. And it's those small plastics that are actually getting into our ocean as well. So if we want to be serious, there's just so much more we can do. Port Fairy, in my electorate, has actually been plastic bag free for 10 years. So I think I'll give credit to a lady by the name of Genevieve Grant, who led that charge. So 10 years ago, and at Port Fairy School Fair, they sell a great coffee and make quite a lot of money out of that. And nobody even thinks that it's going to be in a disposable cup. They're all in ceramic cups, and the parents and community members wash the cups, and it works normal. It's quite a logical process when you think about it. We all got a little bit carried away with our polystyrene cups and our plastic, and thinking that we could just throw it away. I remember actually when I did my Nuffield scholarship and was very fortunate to be able to travel around the world and look at food policy and all sorts of aspects of where we'll go into the future when it comes to food. But I happened to be on the Mediterranean, and I was absolutely shocked, because the Mediterranean, bit of a trivial thought, trivia here, actually only empties the water once every 100 years. So every droplet comes in and it's 100 years before that's actually expelled. The amount of plastic bags that were floating around the beautiful yachts was extraordinary. I was actually shocked, because in Australia we've actually been quite fortunate the way we have sort of taught people to dispose of litter properly, but it really stood out to me. It's not only about hiding litter, it's about not producing litter. And that's where I think we should have a real campaign as a community. We've done well with the plastic bags. This is a community movement that's ended up banning plastic bags, and a community movement of actually making sure corporations start to think about whether they need to put 2 layers of plastic around things. I bought a packet of Dove soap the other day, and it was plastic upon plastic, and it was impossible to get into the 2 bars of soap. And it's frustrating. I mean, we don't need it. Why are we doing it? A box was fine. It didn't need plastic around the box as well. So there's so many ways that we as community members can put pressure on the corporations to actually think harder about what plastic gets put around. I know it prevents damage and spoiling from weather, etc., but we can do it because we have done it in the past, and we worked well 30, 40 years ago. I do think though, and I do want to mention that this plastic ban, will be a challenge. I was in the Salvos the other day. My daughter and I like to do op shopping, her more than me, because she's a skinny little thing and can pick up better clothes than I can. But I was talking to the Salvos. I took some of my bags in to help them out, and they were quite concerned about this change. And they asked, will we be able to bring used plastic bags in? Will you and I be able to take plastic bags that we've bought and have too many of, and will they be able to use it? So they're quite concerned. So we do need to make sure we support people through this change, and I think we're doing that quite well. And I'll actually want to give a plug to Leanne, who manages the Salvos in Warrnambool and does a fantastic job. I met her the other day, and clearly that operation is a wonderful contributor to our community. So well done to you, Leanne, for what you do there. I think the other thing we need to consider, though, with environmental management is actually recognising that we can do more. And waste to energy. I was at a meeting the other day, and there's some gentlemen in my community who are absolutely passionate about really thinking hard about what Europe are doing. I've seen it overseas, and part of that scholarship that I mentioned before. Waste to energy is something we really do need to consider. And in parts of the world like southwest Victoria, where we've now got a crisis because the Andrews Labor government have ignored the fact that 5 years ago we knew China were going to ban plastics, and they gave 13 million 18 months ago as a band-aid solution to get the pressure off the story, and today we hear 11 million again given to 78 councils. Well, I think it's about 140,000 each, so it's going to give them about a 2-month reprieve. So that's not the answer, but the answer is actually getting behind some projects like waste to energy. But government, I think, has a role to play coordinating the rubbish in an area so that it's viable, because we have litter on the forest floors as well that can feed into these projects, but we need to make sure government play a role in ensuring all the councils have to cooperate, and that makes the projects viable. We've got investors ready to go, so it can actually be done quite effectively. I also want to talk about how important this plastic ban is to our beaches. We've got a group called Beach Patrol 3280, which is postcode for Warrnambool, and 3284, which is postcode for Port Fairy. You'll all know how beautiful our beaches are right around southwest coast. So it's so important that we make sure that plastic on our beaches is picked up. But I'll keep coming back to it shouldn't be there in the first place. But I want to give a shout out to the Beach Patrol people and Goodwill Nurdle Hunting, who have done an extraordinary job in cleaning up our beaches and raising awareness, because that's where we've really got to go harder. And, you know, when you talk to the 15-year-olds who say, yeah, I really care about the environment, I think we've got to say, well, prove it. Come on, guys, you know, really think through what we can do better, and you know, remember to take your plastic bags. It's easy to pay 15 cents, but it's harder to actually take them from the car and actually walk in and put them back in the car after you've unpacked the groceries. Really put some pressure on people to think about how they can do it better. So I'm proud to support this bill here today. I am disappointed that the government have had 5 years to get their act together, and that recycling, that we as a community have been putting a huge effort in over the last 20 years at least, that we find out as community members, which what I think most of us didn't know, that it was actually going offshore to China, and we weren't dealing with it ourselves. And it's even more disappointing to learn that the government had 5 years' notice. And with 5 years' notice, there's really no excuse for recycling going into the tip today. And then it's even more disgusting that the government are charging the tip, the bin tax, when that is going into the tip and not into recycling. There's 370 million odd, we heard in question time today, that is available. Was 540 million or something. So the government's had the time. They've put some of that money into a website for DWELP, so that's not an excuse. That's not helping the environment. So again, I support banning of plastic bags. As I say, there is absolutely no debate. This is what the community have been asking us to do, and the future of the environment is just too important to ignore. The community are ready for change, and they've showed us that by speaking with their feet, by going to supermarkets armed with their bags ready to go, and they're telling this, I feel, every single day. Certainly in my office, I would get emails every single day about the importance of the environment. There is no debate. That's absolutely critical, that we're here supporting the environment, and I'm very proud to be here today supporting this ban for the benefit of the environment, benefit of my grandchildren, one and a bit, and I'm sure my great-grandchildren into the future. So it's many, many generations. As a farmer, it was always the forefront of our mind, working with the environment. Anyone who tried to work against it was, crucified by the environment. So the environment is king, and we all know that every single day we get up, we make sure we should make sure that we respect the environment. It's much smarter than we will ever be as human beings, and all we can do is understand we do have an impact here. but we work with that impact and make sure we are constantly researching better ways to work with the environment, not against it. So I finish on the note that I support banning plastic bags.